Hey everyone, I had a project coming up in the next couple of weeks and I was doing some test shoots and I realized that I was not going to be able to focus as close on something as I had wanted to. So I had a couple options. I could either go and buy or rent a macro lens, or I could try something called extension tubes, and this is something that I had never had any experience with. But for $15 on Amazon, I figured, hey, why not try it? So what I got was the Fotodiox macro extension tube kit. It comes in a little box like this, not very complicated. It's probably made in China. And what you get is essentially you have a lens mount, so this is going to actually attach to your lens, and then you have a body mount, and this is the Canon mount, obviously. So between those you put these tubes, and they're different lengths. This one's 28 millimeters, and then there's a 14 and a 7. So the different lengths are going to change the distances at which you can focus, and you can combine them. So you could put the 14 and the 7 together and get a 21, or you could put them all together and get a total of 49 millimeters, which is pretty ridiculous, and I'll show you that in a couple minutes. So they're made of metal. I mean, they're pretty well made. I actually dropped one of these off of my 3rd story apartment balcony accidentally, and it just kind of like bounced off the ground and was totally fine. So the only downsides that I really see to this is you cannot adjust the aperture while you have them on this, because there's no information being transferred to the lens. So things like auto exposure, also autofocus, you're not going to be able to do. But there is a way to get around the aperture part, which is you put the lens directly on the body like you normally would, set your aperture to wherever you want it to be, hit the depth of field preview button, and then while you're holding that, take the lens off and the blades will stay where they need to be. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you some of my test shoots now. Okay, so I did 2 tests. The first one was outside, and this is just a piece of bamboo, and I focused right on the area where the main stick of bamboo has that little growth coming out. And this was as close as I could focus. This is the closest focusing distance on my 85mm lens at f6.3. So this is just for comparison. This is just the minimum focusing distance normally with no extension tube. And then I threw on the 7mm tube, again at the closest focusing distance, and you can tell there's a big difference. I mean, I'm significantly closer in the frame, which is good. That's what I wanted. And then from here, the 28mm, not as dramatic a jump, but still significant enough. And then this is with all of the tubes at 49mm, which is kind of ridiculous. I mean, that's exceptionally close. I was maybe like 6 inches from the actual plant there. So the project I'm working on, I'm actually gonna need to be really close to some real people. So this is as close as I can get with my 85mm. What I needed was something more like this, which is my 7mm extension tube on the 85 at 2.8. This is the closest focusing distance, and you can tell it is very close. This is pretty usable still here. I mean, there's a usable amount of depth of field. I could have bumped up the aperture, you know, to something like 5.6, and it would have been a lot easier for me, but this is just where I tried. So this is the 14mm tube, and you can tell here as the extension tube gets longer, you obviously get closer, but you also get less and less depth of field, so it becomes incredibly hard to keep things in focus. And as you can see here on the last one, 49mm, that's incredibly close, but also it was either my iris was in focus or my eyelashes were in focus. So I'm not sure how usable that is. I probably would never actually use the 49mm on a moving subject, but it's nice to have the option.